Welcome to the Note. I'm Mica.
I'm John.
Destiny 2's beta has only been in the wild for a couple of days for those who pre-ordered the game on PS4 and Xbox One, but that's all it took for Guardians to get all up in arms about it.
Because that's what they're called in the game.
Yes.
Right on schedule. You'd think players would be happy about a glimpse at the new game, but it's hardly dancing emotes in the Destiny-verse at the moment.
That's one of the dances.
Because some of the game's biggest fans aren't happy at all with how the new game has changed things up from the previous title. Change, no!
The beta's now got players accusing Bungie, not just being mad about, but accusing Bungie of turning the game more like an esport in order to gain more fans, losing sight of what made the first game great in the process. Do they have a point, or is this just a case of gamers being gamers and feeling entitled because they're gamers?
Nah, I'm always entitled. Let's break it down and sort out what's got everyone so upset. A quick glance at the Destiny subreddit shows that the majority of the top threads are dedicated to grumpy Guardians complaining about the beta.
You'd expect at least a little bit of that. It's very common for players to vent gripes about gameplay changes, but we're talking about some huge threads devoted to the discussion here. Like huge, and also the whole first page is the same topic.
That's not good.
No.
So, what are players most angry about? It mostly comes down to Destiny 2's balancing and how the gameplay is tuned for the PvE experience versus the PvP experience, which isn't exactly a new problem for the game. Yeah. Balancing between the two has been a problem since vanilla Destiny, in part because Bungie has been committed to making PvE and PvP feel as similar as possible.
Which definitely makes sense. It keeps the core experience unified. The problem is that's led to some, let's say, annoying tendencies in PvP when it comes to Destiny 1. You know, shotguns were constantly a pain, the point of the first game, with players often rushing and obliterating each other and leading to inevitable nerfs which affected you in PvE, and the balancing was stupid.
Same thing happened with exotic weapons, which were meant to be the best finds in the game. They were often nerfed in PvP because they basically made players invincible in some cases.
Yes, however, most of those gripes were manageable because players simply loved how all of it worked in PvE, which is where most of Destiny's meat is in the story and such and such. But the core gameplay loop for many was satisfying. It played like a more mobile version of Halo, except you were a space wizard. So like, what's not to love? Space wizards.
You got to wear pretty clothes and match and look all nice.
And if you were a Titan, you had a butt skirt. It was great.
But now, all that seems to have changed in Destiny 2, whose balancing seems heavily skewed in favor of PvP. In order to deal with the problems of mobility and rushing in PvP, Bungie looks to have made movement more slow in general, particularly for the Titan class, which sort of makes sense.
It does. It's a heavy class. You know, you'd think the Titan would have more health and be slower. The Hunter is more DPS, and the Warlock's just squishy and floaty.
Yep.
But they've also changed around the weapon slots, so snipers and shotguns fall into the same category as heavy weapons. So now they all share the same ammo type, unfortunately. This limits the amount you can use shotguns and snipers at all, which were crucial to PvE in the first game. Players are fairly frustrated about this because the drop rate for power weapons is extremely low in the beta, and how are you supposed to snipe all those asshole goblins across the map in PvE if you don't, okay, continue.
I just don't know it's such a problem. This also has a side effect of making enemies feel more bullet spongy, because your only real way to deal with them is to blast them endlessly with your primary, since you don't have any power ammo to speak of.
And the icing on the cake is that super abilities, you know, like that awesome Captain America Titan and the Emperor Palpatine like Warlock, and also they have like an arc staff, and now Warlocks have Dawn Blades. They also have been on a slower timer as well in order to keep them from being spammed in PvP.
I still stand by the fact that anybody talking about Destiny just sounds like a crazy person because of all the terms that are thrown on.
Right?
I love it. So while PvP feels great to many players in the beta, PvE, judging by their responses, maybe seems to have suffered a little bit. Mostly because you don't feel like the super awesome, extremely mobile, ultra powerful space marine wizard guy that you did in Destiny 1.
There's all those descriptors that make you sound crazy when you're talking about Destiny. While some of this could be chalked up to gamers just being whiny about a beta, as they tend to do, people are always going to, grumble about changes to their favorite games. It is worth noting that this is a pretty major shift for Destiny in terms of gameplay, and it's dominated the subreddit as a result.
Players generally seem unhappy about how the game is balanced, with quite a few feeling like this is Bungie's attempt to make Destiny 2 appeal to a brand new user base. How dare they try to find more people to play their game? Well, curse it!
There also is that new thing of everybody trying to make everything esports esports, and when everything's esports, nothing is. But here's what some of those angry players have to say. In a thread titled, "The focus on PvP is heavily affecting PvE in a very negative way," which has 5,000 upvotes, by the way, one player wrote, "I'm not happy about several changes made to the game that we've known about since the reveal, and now are experiencing with the beta. And the reason is because many of these changes feel as though they're focusing solely on PvP rather than PvE and Destiny as a whole. Bungie is trying to make Destiny an esport, and this is not how you make an esport. Let the competitive crowd grow out of the game, don't try and force it upon the game." Fair point.
Or you just make Overwatch and you have an esport.
There you go.
That's it's kind of contradicting what this person saying. You can just make an esport game.
Right.
It's literally there. And in another thread with 2,500 upvotes called "Anyone else feel like every change has been catered towards PvP?" a Guardian said, "I feel like we've gone one step forward in PvP, but 2 steps back in PvE. PvP feels solid, doesn't feel cheap anymore, and gun skill plays a much bigger part. Kudos, Bungo."
They went on to say PvE has greatly suffered because of it though. Power ammo is too scarce, even if they make it a drop more. Ability cooldowns and ability damage have been nerfed into the ground. Grenades can't even take down a couple of red bar enemies, and then you gotta wait forever for more. Supers also take too long.
In another thread with 2,800 upvotes called "Please Bungie, will you please balance PvP and PvE separately?" another user wrote, "I love how PvP feels in the beta with less ability spam and more gunplay, but I feel weak as hell in PvE. I mean, a fusion grenade didn't even kill a Legionnaire, and then I have to wait another minute and 20 seconds to not kill another one. I don't know what stands in the way of separate balancing, but I hope Bungie can hurdle it."
I actually completely agree with that point. Grenades are taking way too long to come back. But really, that's what a lot of this seems to come down to. For whatever reason, Bungie really wants to keep the experiences unified. But as we've seen here and in Destiny 1, that doesn't always work out well for both sides. It might be the case that it's not possible for them to tune them separately, which is why they haven't done it yet, but it's sad to the players that don't want to always be in Crucible. They just want to play the story, and when grenades take 2 minutes to come back and they don't even do damage, it's disappointing.
Yeah, in addition to that, players are also upset about the lack of content in the beta in general, especially compared to Destiny 1's beta from back in July 2014.
But to be fair, Bungie may have tipped their hand way too much with that first beta. When it launched, a huge chunk of Earth was playable, giving gamers a look at what probably amounted to almost a fourth of the game's total content. That even had all of the enemies in there that you couldn't even try fighting yet, with question marks for levels.
That's not smart.
They were like, what is this enemy? I can't fight him.
Cool. Mysteries. With all these gripes in mind, it's worth noting there are players on the other side of the aisle as well trying to talk reason into their fellow Guardians, with whole threads devoted to it probably being a good thing that the most discussed problems are about tuning.
Which is critical here because once again, we are talking about a beta. There are plenty of ways for Bungie to tune the game's balancing, especially between now and the September launch. It's just July. They've already said they'll be adjusting the drop rate of the power ammo, for instance, so they're listening.
Yeah, plus the beta is still missing some of the content that makes Destiny feel the most like Destiny. Things like social spaces, character progression, loot, none of that is present in the beta as of yet, although the social space will be here by the time the beta's over.
It seems that for now, Bungie's primary goal with the beta was stress testing the parts that they felt needed it most, the strikes and PvP, so matchmaking, essentially. So it's likely that they'll respond to this feedback before too long and do what they can to make things right. Like we said, they've already publicly said they will fix power ammo, so they're listening.
What do you guys think of the Destiny 2 beta and its angry players? Did Bungie change things too much? Let us know in the comments, but please just, only if you've played it. Don't be jumping in with like your own opinions like the internet does sometimes. You played it? Want to hear what you think.
For future updates on Destiny 2 and Grumpy Guardians, Grumpy, they so grumps. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the know.
I don't like that last part.
Grumpy.
Don't like that.
They are Grumpy Guardians.
I can't look over it.
Are you a Grumpy Guardian?
I think I'm grumpy.
Welcome to the know. I'm Mica.
I've got food in my mouth. I'm also John.
Destiny 2's beta has only been in the wild for a couple of days for those who pre-ordered it.
We'll do that again.